I'm Steve Olsanowski from Axum Technologies. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Building Economies Theater. This session will focus on computing and cloud services. Before we begin, I have a couple administrative remarks. This session has been approved for one CompTIA continuing education unit and one GIAC continuing professional education unit. We can provide documentation of attendance at the session as long as you're a member of AFCEA and you have your badge scanned at the end of this session. We'll be taking questions for this session. There's a Q&A mic in the center aisle. Please queue there if you have a question. Also, please take time to silence your mobile devices. It's now my pleasure to introduce this morning's speakers. Mr. Jason Martin, Acting Services Directorate Executive from the Defense Systems Information Systems Agency, and Mr. John Hale, Cloud Portfolio Defense Information Systems Agency. Both Mr. Martin's and Mr. Hale's biographies can be viewed on the Symposium app. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Martin and Mr. Hale.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jason Martin. I'm the Acting Services Executive here at Disa. I'm going to walk through just a couple quick things, and I'm going to turn over the mic to John, who's going to talk Cloud 2.0. I'm going to talk about computing and the way we do things today and a single new offering that we're going to have in place by the end of the year. So if you could, go ahead and go to the first chart. Okay, the second chart. So for those of you who are at Forecast Industry or have worked with Disa for quite a while, I think understand how we do computing in the data centers today. We have currently 3 capacity services contracts, which are essentially on-demand contracts for hardware delivery, hardware and some services delivery. So we have a PCS contract for processors. We have a COM as a service contract, which delivers all the DEC infrastructure, all the DEC-COM infrastructure. And then we also have a storage as a service contract that provides all of the back-end storage for all the customer applications inside the data centers. In the next couple of years, and the schedule has been posted, like I said, in the Forecast Industry charts, we will be offering 5 different capacity contracts. What we're going to do is break out the mainframe processing into a separate contract, and then we will also create a new converged and hyper-converged systems contract that will be out on the street. So we're going to go from 3 to 5, and you'll see those in the next couple of years. So if you could go to the next chart. So back in, I think it was October, General Zabel commissioned the stand-up of 5 different integrated project teams to look at the strategic vision for Disa as a whole. The computing and cloud IPT was one of those. I was the chair of the IPT. John was the cloud lead for the IPT. And what we did is we came up with a series of things, which I'll cover in the next 2 charts, which is the direction we're going to go in the next few years. So as everybody knows, and I just mentioned, we have standards-based hosting. The problem is we don't really have standards-based hosting outside of the hardware layer. So what we're doing and have put a concerted effort into in the past couple of years, and especially moving forward, and some of this we're going to drive change through rate or through cost recovery mechanisms, but we're really trying to drive towards standard-based hosting, x86 virtualized type environments. We have a lot of physical environments. We have a lot of different physical environments. We're really trying to get that under control to meet the demand of lower rates and lower costs that this is providing to the department. So you are going to see some changes, and I'll talk about that a little bit on the next chart. MilCloud 1.0 is what we launched in 2013. It is the infrastructure as a service offering that we have today. It is built on an x86 platform. We do have approximately 4,000 units in use today. I think when I first briefed this out a couple years ago, I think we had 10, so quite a bit of growth. We've seen a lot of good mission partner engagement. They've been driving a lot of our requirements, and they're also helping determine where we're going to go with Cloud 2.0. So some of the things we're doing with 1.0, we've decided as part of the IPT that we would go ahead and enhance the current capability to include a few more things that we haven't had in the past and to meet some of the demand of people like DLA, for example, which is our largest mission partner in the area. In the next year, we're going to incorporate things like auto billing, which we didn't have in the past. It was a completely manual system that happened between the mission partners, the Disa financial offices, and the MilCloud office. We're going to also incorporate standard HBSS and ACAS environments for people to consume on their own or have Disa provide for them. So that's a very big enhancement. The vulnerability management services we've had a lot of demand for. So we'll have that up and running in the next year. Self-service backup is another demand. The new capability I'm going to talk about also on the next chart, storage as a service, will be the back end for MilCloud. We'll be able to consume that as well, which has been made possible by the new storage as a service contract we have today. And then we're putting in some other more management rules at the mission partner layer to do firewall management, things like that. Things that people may or may not want us to do before they didn't necessarily have the ability to do it. We're going to allow them the ability to do that. And then I'll let John get into the 2.0, but bear in mind everything we're doing at both the standards-based and in the MilCloud-based is to set us up for success with 2.0. So anything, for example, that's in MilCloud 1.0 today will be prepped and will then be later moved to 2.0. So keep that in mind as we walk through the next chart and through John's charts. Next chart, please. So the four major things we talked about in the IPT that where we'd like to go based on demand and based on what we're seeing across the department and across industry is engineering services, storage as a service, converged systems, and some of the non-standard unique floor space items that we have today and that we've been struggling with, for lack of a better term. Engineering services, we've had a little demand. It's been off and on. So we've been looking at providing or letting an engineering contract to provide mission partners with the ability to consume our engineering services to help standardize applications, to help migrate applications. Some demand, again, but not a lot. We've been pretty successful on the MilCloud side in helping people do that. But again, and so I think we have a large-scale offering. We just haven't seen the demand. So as we do start to look out and chart out the 2.0 capability, I believe that engineering services is something that will become part of that. We just simply haven't got there yet with where we need to be based on what we're hearing from the community. Storage as a service is something that we've been asked about, I'm going to say, for 18 to 24 months. We do have the capability now. Capability is in development. We have two offerings. The front end, which is essentially the user access from a mobile or desktop environment. That will allow you to do personal-based storage, right? Your drive, standard cloud-type drive. We're going to offer that to MilCloud and non-MilCloud customers. We're looking at a launch sometime at the end of this calendar year. We're going through things now. Yesterday we talked about the portal, how that was going to work, authentication, things like that. So that is well in the works, engineering, and we're starting to pilot with Disa internal activities in the next month. So we should have a pretty good grasp on that by the end of the year. Converged systems, I think we have a total of 29 coming into the data centers. I think we have 5 today. So obviously big demand from people like the Army, DLA, looking at how they can take all their business systems from across those components, bring them into a single environment. We're working with them also and industry to look at economies of scale, how we can do things in a shared type environment today so it doesn't become cost prohibitive. The challenge we have right now is, as you guys can imagine, this stuff is quite expensive. So we really need help from industry to help us define the best way to do this. We have some really good partnerships with some of our vendors and FFRDCs today helping us define this, but as you are approached by the components, normally it's John who steals the show. As you are approached by the components to provide solutions for them, please bear in mind that we do need economies of scale. The equipment is expensive, the software is expensive, the labor is expensive. You heard General Lynn yesterday say our budgets are shrinking. Please help them come up with efficient ways to build these ERPs. We will be there to help from an infrastructure perspective, but it's really up to the mission partners and the vendors to help engineer those solutions so they're optimized as much as possible. And then finally, for years, we've been talking about the non-standard hardware and floor space rental. Floor space is very important to us, obviously. It's how we provide computing mission to the department. We have a lot of either classified customers or special one-off type solutions. We are really going to look at, in these 3 areas, coming up with true chargeback mechanisms. We haven't in the past. It's been a rate-based. It's been somewhat of a shared cost recovery. We plan to stop that. So moving forward on Unisys, AIX, and HPUX, we will remove them from the service catalog, and we will start to charge full cost recovery. So we're looking at FY18. We've started in FY17. on Unisys, IBM mainframe, and some of the AIX platforms. But you can expect in FY18 we're going to do full cost recovery. So again, either mission partner or supporting vendors, if you need assistance in analyzing how you can move to a new capability, now is the time to start. As you know, there's a long lead time for that. It's a lot of work. It's not easy. We know that if we could move everything into a virtual environment, we would. Obviously, we need your help to do that. But the IPT, the Disa Vice Director, General Zabel, and General Lynn have agreed that this is the way we're going to go. So we will start to push this as we go through planning estimates. You will start to see the numbers go up, and it's not incrementally. As you can imagine, some of these are quite large. So with that said, this is essentially where Disa is going with computing from a current data center perspective. I'm going to turn it over to John now to talk about the future of cloud computing and how we're going to do that in partnership with industry inside and outside of the data centers.
So next slide. All right, so my name is John Hale. I'm the chief of the Disa Cloud portfolio, which is a nice way of saying that we took all the cloud stuff within Disa and we put it in one portfolio and made me the belly button for it, which either means one of two things. Either I'm your best friend or your worst enemy, depending upon what side of the fence you sit on. I will tell you that I was pleasantly surprised at the main sessions yesterday in the fact that how many questions were related directly to cloud and cloud architecture, cloud implementation, how the department's going to do cloud. This is something I live and breathe every day, so it was great to hear the feedback from you guys about what was of value to you, what was of interest to you. So I'm going to go through a set of slides really quick, and then we're going to kind of leave it open at the end for a couple of questions, if that's okay. So next slide. So why is Disa focused on the cloud at all? Why is cloud important to Disa? And it really comes down to a couple of issues. Number one being cost factor. We believe that by leveraging cloud capabilities, both commercial, on-prem and off-prem capabilities, that we can bring significant savings to the department. And we can also provide a new agile functionality to our mission partners going forward. So those are kind of the big reasons why cloud is important to the department and to Disa. So next slide. So Jason's already talked about some of these, but I'll kind of rehash them a little bit. There's a reason why Jason Martin and I are up here together. So from a Disa perspective, we kind of work hand in glove. My responsibility is to build capabilities and deploy and get capabilities ready so that we can hand it over to the implementation and sustainment side of Disa for implementation and sustainment, for deployment. So we work closely together all day long, every day, and my job is really to build what he needs in order to satisfy mission partner needs. So with that said, we're going to continue to deliver an enhanced MilCloud 1.0 instance, which is our on-prem government-built, government-integrated capability, cloud capability built on commercial functionality. We're going to deliver the cloud access point. So the cloud access point allows DoD to safely and securely leverage commercial cloud services off-prem. We're going to continue to evolve our SRG, the Security Requirements Guide, which is basically the rule book that commercial cloud providers have to play by in order to deliver services to the Department of Defense. And we'll continue to work with our commercial cloud providers and walk them through the provisional authorization process. So getting a provisional authorization, i.e. the check sheet necessary in order to deliver services to the Department of Defense, can be overwhelming for smaller providers. So we have a team who specifically helps you walk you through that process to make sure that we can get you on board and delivering services to the department. Next slide. All right. So we've talked about MilCloud 1.0 a couple of times, and I won't really go into too far in depth about this, but basically MilCloud 1.0 is our on-prem solution, our on-prem cloud solution. It's based on commercial technology, but it was built and maintained by government staff, right? So that's the key thing about MilCloud 1.0. We're going to continue to enhance it, like Jason said, and like I've already kind of rehashed. So next slide. From a going forward perspective, these are a couple of our goals and priorities. So number one is, I already talked about we're going to deliver the CAP. So the cloud access point is really our gateway into leveraging commercial cloud solutions safely and securely from the DoD. It provides a core functionality for SCCA, the Secure Cloud Computing Architecture. The SCCA the secure cloud computing architecture is a new concept. It's currently up for comment, public comment. It's on the iase.disa.mil website. We do encourage all the providers and all of our mission partners to go take a look at it. We believe it is the future for the way that the department is going to safely and securely leverage commercial cloud capabilities. Next slide. So from a longer-term perspective, we talked about this a little bit. So we're going to deliver the MilCloud 2.0 solution. And the difference between the MilCloud 1.0 solution and the MilCloud 2.0 solution, the big takeaway is MilCloud 2.0 will be an on-prem DoD private cloud built and provided by a commercial provider. Okay? So this is not going to be something that we build and maintain in-house. This is going to basically be bringing a commercial provider in-house into the DoDN to provide services internally to the department. We're going to continue to evolve the CAP. I talked a little bit about the SCCA. And to kind of touch on one other point, we actually have a tech session on May the 3rd at MITRE. There should be some emails that went out to most of the vendors about that. We're encouraging folks who are in the market for SCCA to be involved in that and come have an active discussion with us. It is very much an open process, and we're looking for feedback. And then long-term thing, the big thing is, you heard it talked about many times yesterday, was we have to continue to maintain the DoD security posture as we leverage cloud capabilities, whether they're on-prem or off-prem. So next slide. This is the slide that I think everybody likes to see. This is my favorite slide to talk to. So the idea here is that right now, on the upper left side of the slide, we have DoD data centers which are providing your traditional hosting capabilities. We also have our MilCloud 1.0 instance running in several of our Disa data centers that provide cloud services to the DoDN. Going forward, we see those capabilities still there, right? So kind of the three big pillars of cloud or computing going forward. Number one is, I hate to be the bearer of bad news to everybody, but cloud is not the savior for everything, right? So there is always going to be the need for traditional hosting in a DoD data center on our concrete, okay? There is certain workload that just does not fit well in a virtualized or a cloud model, and therefore we will still have a need going forward for that traditional hosting, right? But with that said, the traditional hosting is probably going to be your most expensive option when you look at compute going forward. And the reason why is because with traditional hosting, you, the mission partner, are providing the entire cost recovery for everything, right? You're paying for the entire infrastructure. You're paying for the machine on the floor, the system administrators. You're paying for everything. That's your cost. And you don't get to share that with anybody, okay? So MilCloud 2.0, which is going to be our on-prem, commercially provided cloud capability, will be an option. Our prediction is it will be cheaper than traditional hosting, but it will be more expensive than other options, right? So you're going to be on government property, on our concrete. We will provide ping, pad, and power to those providers. That provider will get to share the infrastructure cost across all of the mission partners who leverage that capability. So it's a little bit less in the fact that your infrastructure costs are all shared across multiple mission partners. But you still are on government property, and it's a limited set of mission partners that that infrastructure cost is shared across, right? Now, down in the bottom of this slide, we have our commercial cloud providers, both infrastructure as a service and software as a service, right? And so that's going to be your most cost-effective option for hosting going forward. The reason why is because the infrastructure cost for those capabilities are shared across a much larger consumer set, right? So it's just a matter of economics about what you're paying for going forward. Now, with that said, cost is not the only driver for where you put something or why you put something where you do, right? So every time a mission partner comes to us and says, I have this workload, our job is to sit down with them, go through the requirements, and find the best solution that fits their needs, right? It may be off-prem commercial cloud, it may be on-prem commercial cloud, it may be traditional hosting, or a mix, depending upon what their particular mission needs are, right? I will tell you that everybody believes, and there are a lot of providers in the world who believe that everything should be moved to off-prem commercial cloud and we should be done with it. And I will tell you that our opinion, our view is that there's always going to be a demand for on-prem capabilities for certain types of data, right? And my example that I always use is nuclear command and control. I hate to tell commercial providers, but I don't feel that the American people, Congress, or the President would feel comfortable knowing that nuclear command control of our arsenal is being run in a commercial cloud facility off-prem. I just don't believe we're at that point yet. Now, are we going to get there? I wholeheartedly believe we will, right? But we're not there yet. So with that said, the mix is going to be what we foresee going forward as far as cloud providing capability. All right, next slide. So we've talked a little bit about MilCloud 2.0, and my last two slides are really going to talk about how we're doing MilCloud 2.0. So MilCloud 2.0, we broke it into two separate phases. Phase one is kind of our pathfinding effort. It's going to be where it's a smaller effort, smaller number of OEs, smaller number of mission partners that would be leveraging that. But basically, we're going to bring a commercial cloud provider in, and the plan is to do that this calendar year, okay? We're going to bring a commercial provider into a couple of our data centers, and we're going to move some workload over there, and we're going to work through the business process side of how we're going to leverage commercial cloud in our data centers. When it comes to the technology behind this is not rocket science, right? We've all done this for a while, right? Cloud compute is cloud compute. We know how to leverage it. We know how to make it work. It's not a technology issue. MilCloud 2.0 Phase 1 is really about figuring out the business side of the problem, right? So when you work with commercial providers who bill by the minute or by the hour, they bill by input-output, not by CPU, and we have those billing models that we get from the commercial providers. And then we have the traditional DoD model of I want to knock money like once or twice a year and pay my bills, right? We have to figure out how we're going to marry those two models together into a solution that meets our mission partner needs. And so that's what MilCloud 2.0 Phase 1 is really about, trying to figure out the business model side of hosting DoD workload on an on-prem commercial cloud provided capability. Likewise, it's going to work through the operational models, right? So operationally, how do we interface with the cloud service provider on a day-to-day basis? If they're under attack, how do they notify us? If we're under attack, how do we notify them? How is the reporting process going to work? How is that all going to work out and make sure that we do it in a safe and secure way? Going back to the tenets I talked about ensuring that we can maintain DoD security posture. So that's really about Phase 1. Phase 1 is about, and that's going to be done this year. It's going to be a rapid prototype, a rapid on-site capability in order to provide that functionality. And the information that we gain is going to directly lead to MilCloud 2.0 Phase 2. So next slide. So Phase 2 is going to be providing capabilities both on the classified and unclassified networks. It's going to be at more data centers, and it's going to be able to take more workload, okay? But Phase 2 is going to be informed by Phase 1. So Phase 2 is a longer-term effort, a larger effort, but it will be informed by Phase 1. The key note here is that the services provided by this commercial provider will be acquired through Disa's service catalog, okay? So you will still purchase cloud compute from Disa, and we will turn around and purchase that from the commercial provider. So we're going to be the buffer between the commercial provider and the mission partner. And that's mostly, to be honest, that's the only way we see the business side of this working out is by providing that functionality. All right. That is my last slide. So next slide, I think that's it. Yep. So that's my last slide. We got through fairly quickly. I will tell you that at the end of this session, Mr. Martin and I have to go to another meeting, but I will tell you that if you provide your business cards or your information to Laura, sorry, that we will, I will guarantee you if you're here, we will come by and see you today or tomorrow, right? So I'm going to do that for you. So with that said, we'll open it up for any questions. And there were a ton of cloud questions in the main session, so I'm hoping you guys have some really good questions. So yes, sir.
Luis Coronado from the Defense Security Service. I actually had a couple of questions regarding MilCloud 2.0. The first one has to do regarding database licensing and support. I asked you this question back in November, and at the time you had mentioned that it might possibly be in MilCloud 2.0 and how some of the CSPs are currently doing licensing with some of the database vendors. One of the challenges that we're having as a mission partner is leveraging MilCloud 1.0 so we'd like to know if that's going to be addressed in MilCloud 2.0 for the first question.
Is this on? Oh, it is. Okay. So I will tell you that database licensing within a cloud architecture is a problem, not just in MilCloud, but it's a problem in cloud overall, right? And so some of the vendors who we work with are very forward-leaning as far as how they license their database capabilities in a cloud architecture. Some are not. So I will tell you that we're working diligently with those providers to try to come up with an agreement where it works for our mission partners. But that's a separate effort from MilCloud, right? So we're really treating MilCloud as solely as an infrastructure as a service type capability. But I will tell you that we just are working with the key database providers to try to solve the licensing problem related to running their database systems in a virtualized solution.
Thank you. The second question I have is regarding the measured service pieces of the pricing of MilCloud 1.0 versus 2.0. Currently, whenever we consume MilCloud 1.0, we tell you how much compute we want, and we get charged on a monthly basis, whether or not we're using it.
Yep.
Is that going to change with MilCloud 2.0? So if I'm configuring compute and I'm only using 10%, then I'm only being charged for 10% with a cap of 100% of what I provision.
Absolutely, and so that's part of the move towards 2.0 is specifically to answer that need, right? So in a cloud environment, you should only pay for the compute that you're leveraging. Now, with that said, the different cloud providers, depending upon who ultimately is the MilCloud 2.0 commercial provider, have different models for how they do billing. So I don't want to go out and say it's going to definitely be this way, but our plan is that you will only be billed for your actual consumption of capabilities.
Thank you.
So I do want to caution you, though. One of the reasons today that we bill on a monthly basis, whether you use it or not, is due to POM cycles and planning. So as you start to plan, ensure that you're not exceeding your POM because...
So the thing with that is that what we're doing when we're looking at other CSPs is we're doing basically 100% utilization, and therefore we do cost plus if we're doing a procurement externally. So for MIPR, obviously this is how much we're going to provision. That's what we're being charged on a monthly basis. So if we're able to do the same type of methodology with 2.0, that's great.
Okay, thank you. And I will tell you that when we talk about the billing process behind MilCloud 2.0, and like I said, we don't know exactly how it's going to work yet, but the model that we're looking at is the Easy Pass model. Okay, so for those who have Easy Passes, right, you buy an Easy Pass, and then you put a certain amount of money on the Easy Pass, and then every time you go through a toll booth, it peels money off your Easy Pass, right? And then when you get to a certain threshold, Easy Pass charges your credit card another $25 or $50 or whatever you've got it set up to, and then it starts peeling away from that. From your credit card bill perspective, you don't see every single toll that you ever went through, right? You just see $25 from Easy Pass or $50 from Easy Pass. And so that's the kind of the model we're looking at from a cloud computing perspective is can we set up a structure like that within the department where you pay money to the provider and then they eat away at that money as you leverage their capabilities for a billing cycle. And then when you reach a certain threshold, you have to transfer more money back into that process. So not to say that's going to be the way, but I will say that's one of the models we're looking at. So. And Mr. Martin is correct in the fact that when you start talking about billing for actual usage, it's a double-edged sword, right? So one is you could save significant amount of money if you have very low CPU usage, very low I/O usage applications. In the same sense, if you do something very poorly, you could end up with a very sizable bill without even realizing it. And so that's something that you as a mission partner have to be on top of. Any other questions? Out of all the questions at the main session about cloud, you guys didn't come up with anything else? Oh, I got one more. Okay.
Good morning. Chris Seidel with Millennium Engineering. One of the most difficult impediments with the federal government implementing cloud, particularly the DoD implementing cloud, has been the potential for data spillage, and particularly with Cloud 2.0, where you're going to have a classified environment. How has Disa addressed the potential for data spillage? And in a traditional system, if classified information was spilled onto a hard drive of a server, DSS or the DOJ would come in and remove that hard drive. The distributed nature and elastic nature of cloud makes that more difficult. How has Disa addressed that?
So with the MilCloud 2.0 on-prem capability providing classified cloud computing, that's part of our service level agreement with the cloud provider, right? So if there's a data spillage that requires destruction of material, destruction of hard drives, that's arranged for in our service level agreement, and the vendor kind of signs up from that from day one. Now, I will tell you that most of our arrangements that we have with the folks who control those decisions about what happens when, most of those we can go through a certain scrub process, and then we can maintain the drives for their lifetime on-prem. So once the system goes away or the drive reaches end of life, then we do a total destruction of the drive. But there's a possibility to continue to run the spindle even after a data spill and still meet security requirements. Now, with that said, when we start talking about off-prem capabilities, it's a little more complex. I will tell you there are several vendors here who are looking at providing classified cloud computing capabilities off-prem in the future, right? And so we're working diligently with those. That is a possibility that's going to happen. And so with that said, how we deal with data spillages in that environment is also something we're looking at as we work through that process. So.
Good morning.
You're not allowed to ask questions.
Easy question.
You're internal.
Do you have any plans or business models associated with industry providing software as a service on top of the MilCloud 2.0 on-prem?
So I would say no. We don't have any plans for SaaS on top of the infrastructure as a service capabilities out of the gate. So MilCloud 2.0 is really focused on infrastructure as a service, providing that core compute capability to the DoD mission partner. Now, with that said, our plan is it's built on traditional cloud compute capabilities. So as mission partners leverage software as a service providers that are built on the same solutions in the commercial world, that we can bring those on-prem and run those also. But I wouldn't say that we're necessarily looking at SaaS providers on site as part of MilCloud 2.0. And the reason why I say that is you look at a service like Box.net or Office 365 or those kind of things. With MilCloud 2.0, we're not looking at providing those additional functionality as part of the solution. It's really focused on infrastructure as a service. Okay. There we go.
Good morning. Steve Harrell with Booz Allen. What can you share about the contracting strategy?
We can't hear you.
Sorry.
I assume you guys can hear the speaker. We can't. So.
What can you share about the contracting strategy for Phase 1? And then secondly, will Phase 2 be a single or multi-service provider solution?
Did you get that?
A contracting strategy for Phase 1 and 2, correct?
Phase 1. And then will Phase 2 be a single or multi-service provider solution?
Single or multiple service provider.
So the plan for Phase 1 is going to be a single award to one provider to provide that capability. And Phase 1 is scoped to probably 2 data centers, unclassified only, up to a certain number of operating environments that we're expecting the commercial provider to be able to handle. So single awardee based on that. Phase 2, I will tell you the acquisition strategy has not been determined yet. A lot of it will be driven off what we learned from Phase 1. Our prediction is initially it would be a single awardee, but it could go into multiple awardees based on whatever the mission requirements are. So I don't have a good answer for Phase 2 yet. We're still in the fact-finding, side of that. So.
Good morning. Earlier you mentioned the mission partners are going to start getting direct cost recovery for the legacy applications running on Unix, old expensive systems. So I assume they're going to be getting large bills. What's the process for a mission partner to migrate off those legacy systems onto less expensive platforms?
So the Mission Partner Engagement Organization will be reaching out to you as part of the planning estimate process. So they've started that already. I believe they started last week. So I don't know the schedule for who they meet with when, but they will bring that up. They will talk about what the plan is for 17. And so we have gone back and briefed the vice director specifically on the impacted customers today. We would do the same thing for 18 to give you time to palm. Alternatively, they will also say, okay, if you are ready to look at migration, we can help you do that. So there's a part of Colonel Hunn's team and my team that will help you analyze the application, look at various options, provide recommendations and or use cases for who has done what in the past and the best path to get to the newest platform.
Kind of piggyback on that migration question for MilCloud 2.0, for those of us that are currently leveraging MilCloud 1.0, will MilCloud 2.0 assist us with that migration, or will it be seamless to us? Because if a different technology is picked in the award, how is that going to be addressed in the migration plan from 1.0 to 2.0, especially if we have to redo networking and everything else?
So the migration, MilCloud 2.0 Phase 1 is not viewed as a replacement for MilCloud 1, okay? So those two capabilities will run side by side in order to learn the information necessary for the future acquisition of MilCloud 2.0. When MilCloud 2.0 Phase 2 comes online, that is viewed as the replacement for MilCloud 1.0, and the migration path for MilCloud 1 workload into MilCloud 2 will be built into that acquisition. So the plan is that would be taken care of as part of that acquisition, that it should not be any significant cost to our mission partners to go through that process.
Is there going to be a level of effort that will be required by the mission partners in the assistance for that migration? And I think it may be too early to kind of figure out what that level of effort is going to be.
So I think the easy answer is yes, there will be some level of effort involved. We'll have to coordinate with you from an outage perspective as far as moving the workload. There may be some technical things involved based on IP space, all that kind of stuff that has to happen. So there will be some work involved from a mission partner perspective who's leveraging the MilCloud 1.0 infrastructure. I'm not going to stand here and say that you have to do absolutely nothing. It's going to be magic. But our plan is to minimize the impact to the MilCloud 1.0 mission partner as much as possible as we transition that. So, and ultimately, at the end of the day, you should have, better service, better billing, all those kind of things. If we haven't done that, then we've failed from our perspective.
So we do that on a daily basis. We migrate and move things around based on our virtualization layer today. And we've worked with vendors in the past to do that and to plan it. So again, it depends on every application. Every application is different, but we've had significant success in the past migrating from platform to platform based on, some cases, minimal planning.
Any other questions? Wow, you guys are easy. I was expecting lots of really hard questions about money. All right, so with that said, I guess.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Mr. Martin and Mr. Hale for joining us today. And please remember, if you came here to also gain a CEU or CPE, make sure you get your badge scanned before you leave. Have a good day and enjoy the conference.